Good day. Today is Tuesday, November 11th. I'm Bill Brown from Turf Republic. Welcome to Turf Chat, Episode 4, Working Overseas. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Turf Chat Australia, Episode 4, Working Overseas. And right now it's about 6 o'clock Eastern Time on East Coast of the United States, and we've got quite the diverse group with us tonight for Turf Chat Australia. We've got various groundskeepers and superintendents from various parts of Australia, about anywhere between an hour and 2 hour time difference, and we also have Steve joining us from Fiji. So this episode of Turf Chat, we want to talk about working overseas. You know, so many of us, decide to take the jump, whether it's for an internship or an assistantship, to go overseas and get the experience. But the experience gained is not only with turf. The experience is gained are working in a whole new environment, a whole new culture, and that's kind of what we want to talk about tonight. So I'm going to let the gang go down and introduce themselves in 1 second, but kind of what we're going to touch on tonight. First, what made you go overseas? Was it you wanted to maintain different turf, experience a different culture? Maybe it was a golf course you wanted to work for. And then we'll talk about, how long you were there, kind of the best and worst things about it, what were some interesting things in the country. I have a very good friend of mine who is a superintendent in another country. I'm not going to name him or the country he was in, but he actually had a line item for bribery, because when he would get deliveries, he'd actually have to bribe the drivers to actually come into the golf course and open the truck up, and the line item was pretty substantial. But that kind of gives you an idea of what people face in other countries. If you moved away from your home, kind of what you missed from your home, whether it was family, if you were an interning or assistant, and then some of the educational differences. So much of our industry is about continuing education, and I'm sure as some of you have gone overseas, you've had to kind of take on that continuing education, whether it's been for certifications, for spraying or fertilizing or what have you, or it's just been certifications to keep up with some form of education. So that's kind of what's on tap tonight. So let's go down the group here. Brett, we'll start with you. Feel free to introduce yourselves, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Bill. I'm Brett Morris. I'm been in the industry now for about 23 years. I first went overseas as a 21-year-old, straight out of my apprenticeship. The main reason for doing that for me was, you get up early in the morning and watch sort of the Masters and all these great golf tournaments on TV. So coming from the area where I did my apprenticeship, which is a small township in Far North Queensland, it was only myself and two other guys on this 18-hole golf course. To see the quality of the golf courses in the US is a big determining factor. So I really wanted to get on the plane and get over there, and we did that with Mike O'Keefe and Ohio State Uni in 1995. And ever since then, I got home and one of my family members said to me, well, you've got the travel bug now, and they were right. So from there, I got to work in Fiji and Indonesia as well. So it was a great experience, and like what Bill mentioned before in his opening remarks was, the cultural side of things, and you really get a lot out of that personally, which is what I enjoyed. So,
very good. Chris?
Yeah, I'm Chris Allen from Keysborough Golf Club in Melbourne, Australia. I've been superintendent here for going on 3 years in March. I first went over to America on my 21st birthday. Basically worked at a small public course, wasn't going anywhere, wanted to travel. I thought the perfect opportunity to travel and work. Went on the Ohio State program, and then worked at Marion Golf Club that just held the US Open back in 2003, and then off to Tiburon as an assistant in Florida. Just a massive cultural change, long hours, but just a great experience. More as a personal development than anything. There wasn't too much shocking things, just a lot more hours and a lot more money than the golf courses over there. Next, I guess.
Very good. Dan?
Sure, my name's Dan Cook from Eleanor Country Club in Sydney, Australia. I was lucky enough to spend 6 years overseas, based mainly in the US. Was also on the Ohio State program, worked all three zones there, so worked in the transition zone, worked in the warm season, then worked in the cool season. Kind of felt like I wasn't done there, so took a job in Tennessee and worked on some zoysia, chasing some different grasses. And then still wasn't done. Wanted to do a little bit more tournament work, so spent a little time in Georgia. So it's got on my story and had a great time.
Very good, Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch Hayes, Brisbane Golf Club. Been a super here for about 3 months now. Took over from Brett just recently. I went over and did the Ohio State program. Must be almost 2 years ago now. Spent a bit of time, spent a year at Quail Hollow Club, North Carolina, and I spent 6 months down in South Carolina at the Ocean Course in Charleston. I went over just because, basically like all the other guys said, there's just nothing like it here in Australia. You just want to progress personally, and also you want a bit of diversity with experiencing other cultures as well. I mean, they got a lot of different things over there with the Hispanic help and all that sort of jazz, and it's awesome to be a part of that and experience, Yeah, that's about it for now.
All right. Nadine, you want to introduce yourself and then we'll continue?
Yeah, sure. I'm Nadine from Colin Campbell Chemicals. Yeah, I obviously haven't worked overseas and the likes like that, but with the guys in these room, in the room we've got at the moment, I've all spoke to them about working overseas, how it is, and the different likes, and I thought, well, let's do a turf chat on it and open it up to everyone in Australia to say, look, there are opportunities overseas, and you can learn so much as well, and that's the thing. So I'm hoping to learn a lot here myself and throw a few questions at the group.
Very good.
Rowan?
Yep, I'm Rowan Bock from the Dunes at Port Hughes in South Australia. The course has only been for 2 years, still only a nice course, plans to go for 18. I've only been the superintendent here for just under 12 months. What was the previous year growing stage, construction stage. I went to America in 2009 and I worked 9 months at Robert Trent Jones Golf in Northern Virginia. I went a little bit different and did the study package at Ohio State for 3 months where I took a few classes at Hanneberger at Ohio, which was really good. Glad I did that. Yeah, my reasons for going over were the same as everyone else's. Apart from the fact that the word of mouth that got around, it's probably the best fast track your career a little bit and become an assistant as quick as possible. So that's probably I identified I wanted to my career path that I wanted to get top as quick as possible. So I think that was definitely the best option. And I think it's probably fast-tracked my career by a good 3 or 4 years.
All right. And Steve?
Hi, my name's Steve Lawler. I'm from Natandola Bay Golf Course in Fiji. I've been here for, as a superintendent, just over 3 years. I actually managed a construction here 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, so I've been in Fiji for quite some time. Previously, after my apprenticeship, I went to Japan and worked over there for 6 months, which was a bit of an eye-opener, both on the golf courses and also in civilian life as well. After that, I did the Ohio State program as well. I was at Pinehurst for 6 months, and then I did construction for 12 months with Mercuric Golf out of Florida. So with construction, I saw a couple of sites in Florida and also North Carolina. So I have seen a bit around, like in that sort of area, I suppose. I think just carrying on from what Brett and the rest of you is, you go overseas to fast track your career, and you do go and see those other cultures, and some of the people in Japan, and also the people here in Fiji are just they're fantastic people in both countries, and not saying so in America either. They were very welcoming and very keen to teach us about the way of life in all those countries. So yeah.
All right.
That's cool.
All right, so I got to lighten this up a little bit because I'm amongst company here tonight. So I'm going to share my screen here a second and try to figure out why not one of you went to Penn State. Everybody goes to Penn State. What the heck is that? So Penn State logo's on the screen for at least a couple seconds, so we can. I'm actually, when we're done this, I'm heading up to the Penn State Turfgrass Conference, so I will make sure we're represented up there. But
definitely, it's like I know the Ohio program has been very much in marketing to Australia and the likes. Michael O'Keefe and all of you guys would have known him and worked with him and the likes. And I actually asked John about it. It's just something that Penn State haven't done in Australia, and there is that opportunity there. If anyone in Australia wants to work, do the Penn State online course or the internships, there's definitely opportunities there. And I know when John's coming out, I said to him to by all means mention it because Penn State is a very, very good university alongside Ohio State.
Yeah, I had to say it. Even though you guys whooped up on us a couple of weeks ago, worst loss in Penn State history, man. Anyway, so you guys kind of gave me a good perspective on what why you decided to go there. So I don't think how long is really. It seems like a couple of you stayed a couple of years, some internships, but. What was the best and worst part of it? Chris, you worked at Marion, so I know you probably never saw where you lived. You probably worked a lot, considering what they were hosting. And that could be a good thing. It could be a bad thing that you don't get to experience a lot of culture. You were near Geno's and Pat's cheesesteaks. I hope you at least got to get one of those sometime. But so, guys, let's go down the line. What are some of the best and worst things about your experience working overseas? Brett, you can lead us off if you like.
Best thing, I guess, for me, you get back to that I guess, the personal enrichment of it. I guess the ability to sort of work with, the different cultures and pass on the skills and things like that. And I guess it's the two real highlights, I guess, of my career. Being when I left sort of Fiji and one of my staff members walked into work. Probably took him about sort of 20 or 30 minutes to walk, but he gave me a nice shirt which he would have spent almost a week's wages on to buy, just to say thanks. And so that was a nice sort of a very sort of personal touch. And the other ones when I left Indonesia to come back to Brisbane. I told all my staff I had 50 staff on the golf course and another 25 on the landscape. And they all thought that the company had sacked me. So after I stressed that they hadn't, I went back into my office and one of my assistants came running in. He said, "You better come out here and you better come out here very quickly because the staff are about to riot and they're about to go and burn the hotel down." So I said, I raced back outside and I said, "Look guys, it's not the case. They haven't fired me. It's my own choice. Don't go and burn the hotel down. Everything's okay." So those sort of things have been quite special. They probably two of the best points of my career so far.
For me, the best thing is probably the contacts you've made over the time in America. I'm still very close friends with Matt Schaefer. Originally, I just went back for the US Open this year after he asked me to come volunteer. So to me, that was a great thrill to be, respected like that, to be invited back. Also in America, I worked another US Open at Winged Foot, US Amateur at Marion, 3 shark shootouts at Tiburon. I've got heaps of tournament exposure, as well as being an assistant for 2 years at Tiburon, which was a great thrill coming from an intern to an assistant. So to get respect from Americans was good. I also did the Penn State World Campus, so I know what your sort of schooling's like. It's a lot more involved theoretically than what ours is. Ours is a lot more practicality. So just seeing different options and learn about yourself. Marion, we did, as you said, heaps of hours. So I've got a great bond with all those guys we did the summer with. Like, I still talk to them now. So got lifelong friends. But I guess the things you miss back home is food being one of them, and your mates, family. But they're easy. That's just a phone call away over there. So there's no real downside. Probably the biggest downside was working 2 weeks in the snow at Marion. That was enough to get me out of there.
Dan?
Yeah, for me, I think very similar story. I went over there to obviously develop my professionalism and try to take a little, put something on the resume that probably wasn't on everyone's resume. So chased quite a lot of tournaments and got a similar story. I think I've now worked something like 7 or 8 majors. I've worked 12 PGA Tour events, worked a couple of LPGA events, a senior event, mid-amateur and an amateur. So I ticked all the boxes with the tournament exposure. I think also the main thing is the resource pool. It's nice to work at some places that have large resource pools and can make a lot of things happen, which kind of make the job a little bit more exciting rather than looking at it from what a club can afford or can't afford to just making stuff happen. That's pretty neat. So overall, I had a great experience, and I still go back for 2 trips twice a year. One to go to a conference and then to attend a master and volunteer for the event. So pretty lucky in that stead. And you're right, the people that you meet are lifelong friends, and the superintendents that I hang out with are all good guys. And believe it or not, wherever we are in the world, we've probably got the same problems and the same stress. There's some slight morphs or warps on what we do, but realistically, we're all just trying to grow some grass. So for the downsides, I don't have any downsides at all. I treated my trip as a 6-year kind of holiday or away from home, so I didn't miss too much. When I got sick of it, I just came home for a couple of weeks and got a bit of Australian culture, and then back to the US. So for me, it was all very positive.
Very good. Mitch?
Yeah, look, I guess the guys sort of covered it. The networking is probably the best thing, We're going through a champion transition over here, changing all the greens over, so just my networking in the States, I often give them a call and just ask them, tell them what problems I got and say, listen, can you help me out? And they're always more than willing to give you a hand, which is great, Also, it's the tournament experience, I did a few tournaments over there, PGA Champs, 2 tour events, and an amateur event at Pine Valley, so that was great. Probably the worst thing was, old Kent's a bit of a stickler down there at Quail Hollow and had us mowing greens at 9:30 at night. Didn't really go down too well with the boys, but outside of that, mate, it was pretty good, hey?
Very cool. Rowan?
Yeah, just, everyone pretty well covered it. Yeah, just golf course tournament every day. Involved in, just that side of things is a real, just the amount, tools it takes to, to keep, the amount of work and brain that goes into it was just a real eye-opener. I never thought you could spray that much out in a lifetime, let alone. But yeah, I guess bad side was, missed driving on the left-hand side of the road, caught me out a few times. And I guess one to be ticky-touch was far too much walk mowing for my liking. I think I lost about 10 kilos in the month I was over there. Walk mowing greens every day.
Wow. Steve?
Yeah, I suppose the thing you learn, I suppose, I learned most overseas is like in Japan we had zoysia greens and bent greens. We had double greens on one course, so I suppose learning the different varieties of turf, how to manage them, and all that sort of thing is a big plus. At the moment, I'm on Seashore Paspalum here, so it's a big difference from Australia. There's not too many courses in Australia that have Seashore Paspalum, so it adds another, I suppose, feather in your hat to be able to manage something else. The worst thing, I suppose, over here is it's in Fiji at the moment. Actually, just the isolation of the place. It's very hard to source anything. Like there's no turf fungicides in Fiji at all, so other than mancozeb really. So it's very hard to stay on the new formulations of chemicals and whatnot. I have to get all them sent in from Australia. I get that twice a year. So I do 2 6-month orders every year. So it really helps your planning, I suppose, as well. So but it's good and bad here. Obviously, food is a different story. When I go home to Australia, I spend about 3 hours in the grocery store because you actually get so much choice. Here, if it's on the shelf, it's on the shelf, and you have to take it if you can get it. So, but it's getting a lot better here. But yeah, it's a good experience all in all.
Yeah. Well, very cool. My extent, I haven't worked overseas, but with some of the things I'm doing with Turf Republic and iTurf apps, I've traveled out of the United States, and I guess the biggest thing for me is just there's no like wading in the water. I mean, like when I went through customs in Canada, you're just expected to know everything and know the rules, and it's just that's not what I'm used to. I mean, I've worked in the States my whole life. I haven't really traveled out much. I made a mistake last year of going up to Canada up and back on the same day, and got pulled in by U.S. Border Patrol agents, and it was something like you'd see on Discovery Channel, Locked Up Abroad. I mean, it was vicious. So this year when I went to Canada, I made sure it was at least a 3-day trip, so I didn't get stopped. But I was carrying the USGA True Firm with me, and boy, was that, man, the minute I mentioned I was in agriculture at the Canadian border, it was, man, you have seed, fertilizer, everything on you. So it was that kind of throws me off, because it's like, well, here I'm a nice guy. I don't break the rules, what have you, and I don't want to say you're treated like a criminal. I don't blame them, but that kind of catches me off guard. But it's the first couple of minutes of your experience in the country. So I guess what kind of caught you guys off guard, kind of like that. And I guess it's not, you don't need to use when you first arrived in the country, but maybe something just completely caught you off guard. And it doesn't need to be turf. It could be, maybe it was a restaurant you went to and you didn't know they serve food like that, or, an experience you had out where, I don't know, but something that kind of really threw you off heading overseas.
Well, for me, the biggest thing was Indonesia. The first barbecue I cooked for the staff, and I was working for a large hotel chain. And I phoned up the kitchen and I said, well, look, I want to have a barbecue for them. Can you arrange some sausages for me and things like that? And they said, yeah, no problem. So I went and picked it all up, and I started to cook the sausages there on this barbecue. And one of my office manager came over and he said, what sort of sausages are they? And I said, well, they're pork. And I'm not even thinking. I mean, I was in a Muslim country. But I was in a province which was predominantly Christian, and half of my staff were Christian, so I ran into that problem straight away, not even thinking about it. So we had to get a separate barbecue set up at the other end of the shed with different utensils and things like that. So that caught me off guard, straight away, and it's just something that, put my mind at that time, and that's all I wanted to do was just, cook something for them and say thanks. But little things like that you learn from fairly quickly.
Wow, Chris?
Well, first when I got there, it's saying everything twice so people understand you. And then when I went down to Florida, it's how many Hispanics are down there, and you basically got to learn another language again. So it's every day was another learning experience. It was a joy, really. It gave you something different every day.
Wow. Dan?
Yeah, I think for me, I think just the scale of everything. So leaving a country of 23 million people and entering a country of 320 million people, everything is bigger. Whether it be the highways, the supermarkets, you kind of lose touch, or that personal touch seems to disappear in the US. So here, I know the guy who I buy my meat off. I know the guy who sells me my groceries. And going to the US, you just kind of felt like you're a one number in a million ball lottery. So I think for me that was the big change is just the scale of everything, and even just the golf course operations scale was really large.
Wow. Mitch?
Yeah, much the same as the boys, but I think the biggest one for me was the money over there, and their taxes. When you'd go and buy something in the store and stuff, and they didn't have any GST or any tax, so you always, whatever it said in the fridge, you had to make sure you had enough money in the back pocket to pay for the taxes, or you weren't going to get a drink, That was probably the kicker, yeah.
Nadeem, how about you? You travel quite a bit.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, a lot of the time for GAS and the likes like that, and the story that you were talking about getting into Canada is very similar to my first experience in the Anaheim conference. I got held up by the U.S. Customs, by Department of Homeland Security, for a couple of hours because on my passport it said I had been to the Middle East. And just because I do have relatives in the Middle East, they questioned me for a good couple of hours there. I was lucky that I did not have to catch another flight. I just had to get down to Anaheim. So that was an interesting, but I said to a lot of people, I said, once you pass US Customs, as it is with any customs, I said, it is great to travel. Don't let that put you off. It is the best thing. It's just so much experience, meeting other people from, we all talk English and the likes, but just different parts in the state. Everywhere is different, whether it's East Coast or West Coast, Midwest. Everywhere is just different, and I really do like that. And a lot of the times I look at it as definitely from a turf education point of view, but also a good food tour as well. I do like to try the local cuisine. I always ask the locals, what's your local beer and what's your local food? That's what I want to try.
Wow. Rowan?
Yeah, well, I had an interesting start to entering the States. Yeah, I was the first time I'd been overseas. I got my visa. I got to customs and never had any forms, and convinced the guy on immigration where I checked to the country. So that was interesting. Yeah, also probably when I was rooming with an English guy. We were the first interns that arrived, and the first restaurant we ate was where we were. Yeah, I just remember one of my sort of funniest moments is when sitting with this English guy, and every time we'd get sort of 3/4 way through a glass of Coke, someone would fill it up for us straight away. And my English mate, he started to get a bit shirty because he thought he was paying for every Coke he was filling up. But we didn't know that, in America they have bottomless soft drinks everywhere you go. So we thought we were going to get a fairly big bill when it was. I sort of had to hold him back because he started to get a bit dirty at his waiter.
Steve?
I suppose one of the things that sticks in my mind is when I was in Japan, I was there with about 4 or 5 other Aussie guys, and the company I was working for gave us a minivan to drive around Japan in, and we went to the local service station to fuel up. And we pulled in, and next thing his arm comes through the window, pulls out the ashtray because every man and his dog in Japan smokes. So they emptied the ashtray and they fueled up the car, and then all of a sudden this guy runs out on the road and stops the traffic so we can actually pull out onto the road without any trouble, without any, having to stop and wait for traffic. So it was really surprising there. In the States, I can't really think of anything there offhand. But that was big eye opener for me. Just to so many people that in Japan, there's not much work there, I suppose. So they give people jobs to do anything over there. So.
Wow. Well, I recently went up to the Idaho GCSAA chapter, and their meeting was in McCall, Idaho. So I flew into Boise, which is just a beautiful area, and then I had a 2.5-hour drive from Boise up to McCall, and it was desert highlands environment, and then it was like big national forests, and then just plains, upper elevation like plains. But when I got to just outside of McCall, I pulled through a town, and I don't remember the name of the town, but we have population signs all over the place here, and it said the name of the town, population like 800 people. And I'm from outside of Philadelphia. I'm not used to that at all. And when I got to McCall, Idaho, I think the population's like 2,400 people. And downtown McCall is like something you'd see on a Christmas card, just absolutely gorgeous. And the speed limit through town is like 15 miles an hour, and people do 10 miles an hour. And here outside Philadelphia in this East Coast area, if the speed limit's 55, if you're not doing 85, they're running you off the road. So it's just I hear you guys kind of, from a scale perspective and kind of experiencing the differences is a big deal. I mean, Nadeem, you said it, even from area to area in the States, it's a big difference. So, guys, I guess we'll finish up with the last two questions. One, Chris, you brought it up, working with a diverse Hispanic crew. I don't know how much Spanish you picked up if you bought Rosetta Stone. We just held our education conference, our first education conference, and Matt Schaefer was there. And Matt Schaefer said one of the best investments an assistant can make is buying a Rosetta Stone and learning a different language. That, and then so how you guys kind of deal with the language barrier if you did have to deal with it, and then also kind of wrap it up with any advice you'd have to give to your peers on heading overseas.
Well, in both countries, apart from the US, obviously the Fijians and some of the people, my assistants and senior staff in Indonesia could speak, reasonable English, so we were able to communicate that way quite well. But they really had a lot of respect for you if you try to go and learn their language, and speak to them in their native tongue. So I ended up learning a bit of Bahasa Indonesian. And, we went back to Bali recently, and came back fairly quickly, and so the locals like that. So I guess if one piece of advice, if you're going to go and work over there and you're working in a different location other than an English-speaking country, then make the effort to try and learn the local language, because that way you obviously for communication purposes, but also you tend to get a bit more respect from the staff, in adapting and absorbing into their culture that you're working in.
Chris?
When I went down the Tiburon, we had a staff of 52 for 36 holes, and of that 52, I think 44 Hispanics. So to learn the culture was what we had to do. We went to Spanish class once a week. Well, I did anyway, the management staff. So yeah, I learned to embrace it. Plus, I enjoyed it. It was something different, and they're great guys. They work hard for no money really. So I admire what they do. They leave their families behind, and they're rooming in a bedroom that would sleep one of us in Australia. They're sleeping about 12 on mattresses. So it's sort of amazing scenes, and you get a lot of respect for them. So the least I do is try to learn their sort of native tongue. But advice for people going over to America is just be open, really. Try and meet as many people as you can. At the end of the day, it's probably not for everyone, but if you go there with an open mind, willing to experience new things, I'm sure you're going to have a ball and get plenty out of it.
Dan?
Yeah, I think I was faced with an interesting language challenge in Florida. I had a crew of Haitians, or a group of men from Haiti. Problem with that was that when I was there, it had only been a written language for 4 to 5 years, and there's quite a lot of versions. French, Pidgin, it's all kind of mixed up. So I circumnavigated by getting an interpreter. The problem with an interpreter is part of their culture is they don't often like telling others what to do. So posed quite a big challenge, but eventually through a lot of hand signals and demonstrations, get the message across and get the job done. So, but very interesting times trying to communicate with those folks and not really have the option of learning the language because it had so many different versions and it had really only just become a written language. So interesting there. I've just come back from a trip to the US and I was up in the Philly area and I was actually in Portland for a little while. So my advice would probably come straight from Phil Knight, and it would be just do it, just have a go at it, and whatever you put in, you're going to get back out. So enjoy it, have a good time.
Very good. Mitch?
Yeah, I remember I was at Quail Hollow, and we had 3 or 4 Hispanics there. It was mostly just interns, but I remember I got stuck with them for a couple of days, and you know, I didn't understand what they were saying. They didn't understand what I was saying, and it's a little frustrating. So one of the guys there, the spray tech at the time, spoke really good Spanish, and I said, mate, can you teach me a bit of Spanish? And he gave me a book, and I basically went home and I read it, and you know, I can't speak Spanish very well, but it gave me a little bit just to try and communicate with them. And then, you know, as you start to talk to them, they talk to you a little bit more, so you learn from them. And it really helped me out when I went down to South Carolina at the ocean course, because more than half our crew was Hispanic, so I could speak a little bit by that time, and it definitely was a lot easier to communicate with them. But, you know, my advice to anyone else going over to the States is, you know, you hear a lot of boys doing the higher state program and they come back after 12 months. To me, nah, that's ridiculous, you know. You only get the opportunity once. Nothing much changes us back home, so stay over there and complete the full 18 months and get everything you can from it.
Very good. Nadeem, you have some things to talk about, and I guess with traveling, you're traveling, and some advice?
Yeah, just as Mitch just said, yeah, just do it. You've got the opportunity, by all means, go out and do it. And one of the things is I'm getting the theme is that everyone here essentially who's gone and worked overseas has fast-tracked their career. I look at it and you know, you hear these days that just a high school diploma and your even your university degree is not enough. You need to go on a postgraduate degree to get ahead. I guess within our turf industry is that unfortunately in Australia we don't have the university degree anymore, but at least we have that opportunity to work overseas. So any of the guys in Australia looking to just do a bit of work experience, head overseas, get in touch with these guys who are on here at the moment, and and just do it and work at all different courses. It is amazing out there. You learn so much. There's a lot to learn here in Australia, but there's a lot to learn over there. And you can, and I'd say everyone who's went over there has brought so much back here to Australia. So yeah, by all means do it. And on the other side of it, from my side, if you get a chance to go to GIS or any of the turf conferences over there, if you're out in the States, very, very good education. Just sitting down in lectures and learning from top university professors.
Very good. Rowan?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at RTK, we probably had a few years of, like Americans and Americans. I learned Spanish, mainly things to do with, you know, golf coursework, you know, so very basic. But yeah, you know, they've all got a seem to enjoy what they're doing. So no, it was a pleasure to work with those guys, and yeah, I loved it. So but yeah, to anyone else going over to America to work, do an internship or whatever, yeah, just, I mean, if you think about doing it, just go for it. You know, I mean, sitting on the fence, just have a go. And, you know, you won't regret it. You know, I only spent the 12 months over there. I actually had a long-term girlfriend when I was back in Australia. So, but if I didn't, I would have stayed over there and may never have came back. I don't think. I loved it. So I wanted to come home after the 12 months, probably visit. Yeah, I could live over there. I loved it.
Very good. Steve?
Yeah, I think with the whole culture thing in Japan, we found it very. There's obviously 5 of us there, like I said before, but we had one translator who worked on the golf course with us as part of the crew, so it was very hard to talk to people you were working with if the translator was out on the 36th hole or whatever, so it was a bit tricky that way. So it was all sign language, and and we did learn some of the language over there. One of the Aussie guys, he actually learnt it fluently, so he could pick some girls up, because none of the girls would speak to us because we couldn't speak any Japanese. So he made a point of going and doing that. But when I worked in construction in the States, it was good. I was on a different couple of sites, so the Hispanic guys on the sites obviously changed. There was a group of 50 to 70 guys on the first site, and then we went to another one. There was only like 10 or 12, and on the third site, it was good to actually, like, I was part of the clearing crew in North Carolina, and I didn't know who was coming. All I heard was these Hispanic guys are coming up. Didn't know who they were. We were starting at 7 o'clock in the morning in the middle of June. Or when was it? No, it wasn't. It was probably January, February. So it was pitch black. Walked into a container to get some tools, and next thing, these 6 Mexican guys walk in, and it was the guys from Florida. It was just like hugs and handshakes and all the rest of it, because it was we built that respect between each other. It was a pretty good feeling, and even though I couldn't, I didn't speak that much Spanish, they sort of helped me along the way. So it was fantastic in that respect. But going overseas wise, when I went to Japan, I actually knocked the job back at first. And I sat back and had to think about it, and thought, it may not happen again. So I called up the guy the next day, and it was all settled. So so I think that's the key. If you, like you said, guys, it's a one in a lifetime opportunity. If you don't do it, then you're losing out.
Very good. Well, guys, this was probably one of our best turf chats. This was really good conversation. Great advice for anybody hesitant to go overseas, anybody looking to go overseas. This is some great advice. Hopefully, a lot of people bookmark this one. So thank you, guys. This was fantastic. Nadeem, thanks for getting this together. Just for TurfChat Australia, make sure we keep these videos on demand on Turf Republic. Also on iTunes, we have a link below the live stream where you can click and subscribe. I'll try to get this episode on iTunes by the end of the week for everybody. So, guys, just great talk tonight. This is fantastic. Look forward to talking to you guys again. Anybody have any final thoughts? Just want to say goodbye before we sign off here?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I'm actually quite surprised. Like, a lot of guys have worked in the States, and I remember when I first met Dan when he came back to Australia, because I hadn't actually met Dan before, and he still had the Australian accent. And Steve, I'm actually quite surprised. You've been overseas for so long, especially in Fiji. You still sound as Aussie as you do with the day you left, I'd say.
Well, it's hard to bit tricky to speak Fijian. But I can't get my tongue around the R's and whatnot.
I think you've got to make a choice, Nadeem. My choice is I'm Aussie through and through, so I'm going to hold on to that forever.
Great.
Exactly,
Good to hear.
Very good. All right, guys. Well, glad to have you tonight. Again, this is great conversation. So look forward to Turf Chat Episode 5, whatever that topic may be. If you guys have any suggestions, please let us know. So, guys, with that, thank you very much, and we're signing off Turf Chat Episode 4 Australia. Have a good one, guys.